Hello, I'm Steven, and in this video I'm talking about how I set up my Mobula7 Whoop quad chopper and configured it to work with my Tranis Plus. So first thing that I did here is I had to start it up, and to start it up into firmware mode. So you use the USB cable. You have to put the two trims together. You switch the on switch, and then you plug in the USB cable, and then you're able to go into USB mode. So now that I have that up, I'm going to pull up OpenTX Companion, and then I can do a pull from the radio. So I'm going to pull models and settings from the radio. I'm just going to do a pull, and I already have this set up, so we'll just see what I did. But you can see my Mobula7 there comes right up. And now, the special stuff that I did with it today is I set up a function so that when the battery starts getting low, it will tell me. So to figure that out, I came in here and I could see from the telemetry data, I had the A10 there, or A1 there, and then I had found, when I was flipping through the flight modes, that it shows that at the top, which I know already works. So if we skim through here, we should see that someplace in here. Puts, mixes, outputs, first throttle, throttle warning, timer 1, flight, throttle, custom screens, nope, wasn't there. Low alarm, there we go, so top bar volts source is A1. So that's how I figured out that A1 was from the telemetry, was where that voltage was. So I wanted a warning. I've been using the FPV goggles, which do show the voltage, but sometimes I'm flying and I'm a little too busy to be looking at the voltage, or I'm just flying line of sight, and then in that case I don't have the heads-up display in the goggles, and it doesn't help me any. Alright, so what I did is I went and looked at another model that I had, and I found the logical switches. So this has been a little bit of a refresher for me too here. And I picked A is less than X, and so A here then is the telemetry, and X is 3.2. I googled how much a 1S battery should be when it's low, and the answer is 3.2. So this would be when it drops below 3.2, and then it'll do that for 10 seconds. It can trigger that if that's steady. So then if the voltage is flipping up and down, it's not like on and off. And then I also set up a timer here. So this is logical switch 2, and that fires every 10 seconds. And now if we come to special functions, we can use those. So first one, I did logical switch 1, so that's our low battery warning, and it does play track. There's also a play sound, which can be like a beep or a chime. I picked play track, and then that, unfortunately, the OpenTX doesn't know what that is, so you have to type it in manually. But if you come into your, I'm going to pull it over here in a second. If you're inside of your Taranis, because it's like the external readable drive, if you come in here and go to sounds, EN, and you can see we have all these sounds in here, and if you play them, you can hear what they sound like. So you can just reference the low bat. I did low bat in those dot wave. It'll just say low bat, and it finds it. So that's how you set that up. Unfortunately, you can't test that, but you can at least set that up. And then the value there, every 10 seconds, is going to fire this one. So I didn't do a repeat because it's already firing that every 10 seconds from the timer. So no need to repeat that. So it will fire that and read the value of the voltage reading too. So throughout the flight, you get this constant, how many volts it is. It just reads it out loud to you. So that's kind of nice. Now this repeats for 3 seconds. The one thing I noticed when I set it up, so this does for 3 seconds, and the logical switch has a duration for 10 seconds. And it actually seemed like after 3 times, which would add up to 9 seconds, it stops. So that's okay, but feature improvement might be to increase that, to just let it go longer. I don't know, but maybe it works fine with just that. Alright, so we have that set up, and then the last thing to do was to simulate it. So I'm going to pull the simulator up here and just show quick how I did that. You come into here, and of course that low battery, since it doesn't know where it's at, it doesn't work here. But we can come into here, and it's on simulate mode, and here we have A1. We can just tell it what we want it to be. So we set it to 3.2, so I can do 3.3 for now. And then when you go down, then you can creep it down, and then it gets below 3.1. It would be making that warning sound, and it also does the sound it makes when not the sound, it reads the voltage, which unfortunately the simulator did neither reading the voltage nor playing the sound, but I was able to do the play sounds mode and just hear the beep, so I could confirm the trigger was firing. It just wasn't playing it right, and I already knew that the play sound on the WAV file worked. And when I did it in real life, it didn't need to work. But this was a great way to test that. All right, so we had that all set up, and that was good. I did a backup of this, and then my final step there is you just do write models and settings to radio, and then it's on the radio. So that's super easy. It beats fumbling around with the buttons. I've done that before, and it takes a lot of finagling. So that was good. All right, so next step, we have Betaflight. So that's the flight controller on the Mobula7. Let me make this fit the screen here. And then you can see we're already connected. So we got two things connected here. We had the remote connected, and we pulled the settings from the remote and pushed them back up after we made changes. And then here we have the drone itself connected. And you can see it's seeing it right now. It's sitting at an angle, so you can see how it's all weird there. So the new thing that I wanted to do with that was adjusting the beep. So when you crash it or something and you kind of lose track of where it's at, because I have lots of grass and trees and things, sometimes you lose where it's at. So I wanted to be able to turn the beep on. It has a buzzer, and this is nice. And I may have to turn my radio off for this. Drop it out of this mode. 1 second. Now you do have to do the safely remove that you would do with a SD card or a flash drive, because you don't want to corrupt things. So I'm going to go ahead and do that fast here. Should not be unplugged. Alright, so now we can unplug it. I'm going to exit. Alright, so now my radio is starting up here.
Switch warning.
And it's going to tell me the switches that I bumped by accident. There you go.
0.
Alright, so you heard it say 0 there. That is it knowing that the drone is at 0% battery, because it's just USB plugged in, and the battery's low because there is no battery. So you can see here on the screen, you can see the pitch and the roll as I move the controls, and then up here you can see the
0.
AUX moving, and that's based on the setting that we configured there in the screen on the radio side of things. So it has an output, which I could potentially pull back up here. Let's see if I can get that. That's interesting to see. So go here, and then
0.
I'm going to turn the radio off so it's not just talking the whole time. So I have outputs, mixes. Here we go. So the mixes, and then you can see we have the channels set up that we're sending it to, and then 5 through 8 are the auxiliary ones. So by default, those initial ones were the first controlling channels, and you have ARM and mode, flip, and then AUX4, which actually could change now. I could make it say this is supposed to be beep. That is what that should say there. So now the ARM is just arm the drone. You can disarm it. So if you're flying, you just need to land, whatever. And then mode, I actually have the stabilization mode versus the I think it's like free flight mode, where you control it to the left and it doesn't bank back to the center. It just stays there until you send it back. And then the flip for turtle mode is what that is there. So that's how I set those up. So basically just mapping the switch. I had a switch that I picked, and then I gave it a name, and then just assigning it to a channel under the mixes. And then that then allows me to utilize that over in Betaflight. So jumping back to Betaflight. So you have the auxiliary 1 through 4 now showing up over here, and it can see them. When I was running it, you saw the switches, how they would fire on that. So I've already done arm and angle. That's what's called angle mode, where you can fly and it doesn't level itself back unless you flip it back. So beeper was a new one that I did just today, and that one, how I set it up, I came in add range, and then I picked from the aux which one it was, and then when I had it turned on, I'll turn on the remote again and listen to it complain about the battery here. So, and my throttle is down.
0.
Alright, so if I go ahead and I flip, when I flip the switch there, you can see it moving right there underneath that. And so if I flip it back or even up higher, it goes out of the range. So in the middle, it turns the beep on. And so then that was how I set that up. And then you pick the range, you just drag it around, pick it where you want it. You wouldn't need to get dead on there. It would work there too, right? It just matters about where that switch falls. It's just going to be one of the three positions, so it doesn't really matter. So that's how I set the beeper up. That did work. And after I did over here, we can't see it because of me. So, but save right there, you hit save, and then it sends it over to the drone. And then after that, it did indeed pick it up and it now beeps. So now when I crash it, I don't have to turn the receiver off. I did have that set up before where I turned it off and it would just automatically start beeping. So I thought that was a nice option. But now I don't have to do that. It will just go ahead and uh, start beeping when I flip the switch. So that will make it easier when I crash it outside. So this is a little more complex because there's two parts to it there. You have the radio set up, and setting up the radio by hand without the computer is quite the job. Whereas definitely easier with the software worthwhile with OpenTX. Plus you can save backups, so that's always nice too if you mess up. And then setting up in Betaflight, just coming in here and figuring out which trial and error here, which aux was that new switch that we configured. And then from there, I came into modes and I just picked the mode I wanted. And from there, I was able to set that up and configure that, and it did work. So I just did a test flight here this morning, and I was getting readings from the voltage, and I think I did get the low voltage ones. I think, unfortunately, the voltage reading may not be 100% accurate. I noticed it didn't always give decimal numbers. Sometimes it gave whole numbers. Sometimes it gave decimal numbers, and I think it gave kind of high decimal numbers. So that's something else to look into, seeing if there's perhaps an offset that needs in there changed to make that more accurate, so it matches the true voltages that's going on there. But that was a good step, and so that should make flying more reliable and less likely to damage a battery, and hopefully get more flight time out of this all.